Welcome. This is Dr. Clay Owens. I'm your CSU professor for this business ethics course. I am present here in the corner. I will be in and out of your view at different times. I'm in my attic space at the house working on this. We are trying to do a good job. The recording has been giving some difficulty. I believe that the volume and the quality of the pictures are all good now for this recording. This is our online session 1. There will be 3 online sessions to traditionally be followed by in-person sessions. Because of health circumstances, it may be that we do those sessions through some live device online. So we'll see what happens as we go by. Happy to be with you today. I'm doing this special tape session just for you. And remember that I'm still here even if I pull my picture off the screen. Today's session we will begin with a quick review of the API style changes that have come into effect this year and are being used at CSU. There are some links about these present on the pages of announcements in your Blackboard course. I encourage you to go back over those and try to adapt these changes to your work. There are also on your page of announcements this PowerPoint presentation that we are about to see is there, and there are additional documents such as a sample paper showing pages, references, in-text citations, and how they are reflecting the changes that have been made in the rules. It's up to you to go over these and do your best to comply with them. I will say that I am generally not taking a lot of points off for problems with this, as long as you are at least compliant with APA Styles version 6. I am just making comments and telling you what to change to improve to version 7 at this time. Other professors will be taking points off for this. This is a hot issue in academics. The second part of today's presentation will be we will review some ideas and concepts regarding business ethics that you should be interested as students in this course. These topics include 6 controversial issues about ethics, 8 features of ethical behavior, 22 principles of ethics in business, followed by 4 principles of Woodrow Wilson, a former U.S. president, which are pretty interesting. Please make notes and watch for these. They are good items and help with the understanding of what ethical behavior is in the workplace. Then we will look at a few comics. These are drawn humorous items that reflect ideas and problems with business ethics, because there are some things that get lost in translation from one language to another, or lost from culture because they are not as common in other areas. I will pop in and try to explain the cartoons and comics as we go along. But I believe that the use of humor will help illustrate the ideas as we go along. Just as in your Blackboard course shell, there are discussions about movies such as Star Trek that talk about the characters and the way they act and how they apply their ideas to business ethics. Again, these are not to confuse you. These are to enrich the data, make it more interesting, and make it more understandable. The final section today will be a few topics related to business ethics in the workplace. And I have my subset titled Ethics in the Workplace. So there'll be several examples of good and bad things that we will discuss. Again, I will try to explain them to you. There are just numerous things that come up in the average workday that are part of the requirements that you understand what ethical behavior is. Some of them are obviously bad things, but a lot of them are things that we do and don't think about it. Lots of people make personal phone calls while they're at work. Technically speaking, you're stealing that time from the company because they're paying you for your time to be there, but yet you are spending part of that time doing personal business and personal errands. So it's a complicated set of issues, and we'll discuss it some as we move along. APA Style, 7th edition, what has changed? APA is the American Psychological Association. For many, many years, the American Psychological Association has printed a research journal, a scholarly journal of high quality, where they talk about their different ways of treating mental illness. In order to communicate accurately from one medical professional to another, the APA has developed a set of guidelines for how written research work is to be submitted for publication. These rules are very comprehensive, very clear, very easy to follow. Many other academic fields and other colleges and universities have adapted this style, APA. So if you learn APA style, you learn how to read the journals and see where the material comes from. You learn how to interpret the data. You learn how to make judgments as to whether work is worthwhile and scholarly or just popular. You learn a lot of things about how to go. There are other styles in the world. When I was in high school, it was called Turabian. This woman named Kate Turabian wrote a book about her style requirements. There's the MLA, Modern Language Association, has a style book. And there are many others. A Chicago style book that was used in many areas. So be aware and know what APA is. It's a set of rules where everybody follows the same guidelines so that the readers can go to the original sources and look at this information. Reference lists and citations. Website addresses are no longer need to be preceded with the phrase retrieved from, unless for some reason you also have a retrieval date that may be for something that changes. You see, the old way is in beige, retrieved from. The new version leaves off retrieved from, but does list the website. Notice that just listing the website is not enough. You have to list other information about author, date, and title of the article, not just the web address. Ebooks in the past, because they were sort of new and people were learning what they were, required that you put what kind of ebook it was. On Amazon, then it said it was the Kindle version. And again, it gave the other information that we're accustomed to seeing. It says now that you do not have to list Kindle version, that people will know that when they pull it up, and it will be all right. Again, the old way is in beige, where it listed Kindle version, but the new way is in green, where it doesn't have to be listed. Journal date of issues are now displayed instead of with a prefix. Again, beige is the old, green is the new. For books, the publisher's location is no longer needed. I often wondered why the location was needed, because sometimes in a book it would list 5 different locations where it was printed at the same time, and you really couldn't tell which one was which. Next page, up to 20 authors can now be included in a reference list entry before needing to omit others with an ellipsis. It used to be you did a short list. Now you can go ahead and list all the names if you want to. Don't have to. Any references with more than 3 authors can now be shortened to the first author and et al., which was the old way. It used to be you had to list 6 before you could shorten it. So that makes the body of the paper shorter. Instead of saying all these names, you just put one et al. That means and others. It's Latin. Latin's considered to be a pretty universal language, even though most people don't know much about it. Again, it's putting things in the same format that other people put them in, so that when someone reads it, they can figure out what you're talking about. Those are the general rules for guidelines like APA. The words running head should no longer be on the title page with the first time. Some people in the past have put running head at the top on every page. That has never been necessary. And saying running head now is not necessary. Now only the actual title and a page number should be used on page 1. And it's okay to go ahead and put page 1. Heading font sizes through, as you go down a list, have been changed. The 7th edition adds Calibri 11, Arial 11, Unicode 10, and Georgia 11 as allowed fonts. Some of the cartoon type fonts, the serif fonts and the sans serif fonts are okay with little curlicues on the letters. Don't use those for me. I prefer Times New Roman or Courier 12. It's my favorite, even though others are allowed now. Try to have bias-free language. Back when I was in graduate school, 1996, 7, 8, they were big on this, trying not to use he, she, this kind of stuff. Try to be more general about it. Trying not to tie it down too tightly to one gender or another, making it so that it's more universal for people to look at. Again, all of these items are available to you in the course announcements section regarding the new APA style. It's under announcements for me. There are a number of changes that don't really matter to us. These are the main ones that are important. Again, remember that there is a sample paper there with some of these changes used in it. There are some other samples there, and you can always go online on your own and look up some more things. You can see complete examples at these websites with additional information if you need it. They are very interesting to look at. They show a lot of things to people that don't understand the concept. Sometimes just looking at a sample paper will give you a huge plus in understanding what is going on. So the way this is generated, you may have to write these out. When you're replaying this, you can freeze this page and get these links lined up. These links are also listed in the slides that are on your course shell under the announcements regarding these APA changes. We're going to get in line now. We're going to discuss Business Ethics Online Session 1. We will have a total of 3 online sessions like this, and then if I do not visit your country this time because of the flu restrictions and quarantines, then we will have some additional online sessions with you. But today we're starting, this is the old balance about what's fair and justice. The scales used to be, these scales were used for trade. They are now used for a symbol of fairness, justice, and equality. Ethics is the study of values of how we ought to live, the way we should live. In some ways, like a perfect situation. Ethics is used almost interchangeably with the words morals and values. Generally, these are beliefs, standards by which we live and make decisions. We are always working to do what we think is right. Most people in most societies, regardless of their upbringing and religion, are concerned with what is correct and what is right to do. Business ethics is a subject that deals with moral guidelines, and in this case, good corporate governance. That's where the corporation is looking after and managing what is going on. Companies are supposed to set high standards and stick to certain common business practices. Again, this is the Lady Justice in the United States. She wears a blindfold. She is considered to be blind. It doesn't matter who they're dealing with. The sword of justice means they'll chop your head off if you don't do the right thing. And then the balance, what's fair and equal for everybody. It's pretty interesting concepts. They go back to ancient Greek and Roman times about justice. These laurel leaves are a sign of justice. And here's a rule book, a listing of things that might be considered okay or not okay. Rules to operate by. Ethics is a subject as a part of social sciences that is related with moral principles and social values. Well, you see the sign talks about right, wrong, and then in between it says, well, it depends on what you're doing. It's called situational ethics. That means sometimes you might consider something wrong, but in a certain situation, you might consider it to be okay. The story that was told to me was that you called it what we called a white lie. A black lie is where you tell an untruth for gain, monetary gain, but a white lie is where you tell a lie just for the goodness of it. Like if someone has a bad haircut and they come up to you and say, how does my hair look? You're not just going to say, oh, you got a bad haircut, you look terrible, you should go home and hide. You should not get out in public. You look terrible.
we'll say a white lie and say, well, it's not as good as the kind you usually get, but it'll grow out and you can try again. Or you'll say that, oh, it looks okay. Nobody's going to pay attention to that because we're all so busy today. You can make it smooth and kind, or you can be mean about it. So it depends on whether a lie is good or bad. Most of the time they're bad, just in general. But it does depend on the situation. Business ethics can be termed as a study of proper business policies and practices regarding potentially controversial issues. Some of the examples are related to corporate governance, insider trading, bribery, discrimination, corporate social responsibility, and fiduciary responsibilities. Now, corporate governance is how you run the company, what decisions you make, what policies you have for your workers. Insider trading is considered illegal in the United States, and there are some very famous cases like Martha Stewart. Someone knew that their company was going to be selling something, so they called Martha one day and said, hey, you ought to buy some of our stock because it's getting ready to go up. And people do that all the time, but in this case, for whatever reason, she got caught and ended up spending time in prison in the United States for that. Very unusual case. Bribery. That's where you pay an official to do something the way you want it done instead of the correct way, the fair way. You pay them to do it your way. You bribe them. Discrimination is where you treat people differently because of who they are. Corporate social responsibility. Things like being a good citizen in the neighborhood, not polluting things, maybe sponsoring local schools with gifts and help. And fiduciary responsibilities, being responsible with the company's money, not wasting money, trying to be a good steward of the resources. Businesses must abide by some basic principles. They should provide quality goods and services at reasonable prices to their consumers and customers. They must also avoid adulteration, misleading advertisements, and other unfair malpractices. Adulteration is a tainted, off-quality product, which some of you wrote about in your papers. The one that comes to mind is lead content in lipstick. The other was the health food company that had poisonous substances in their foods after advertising them as being super healthy. Misleading advertisements, that's where they just throw you off showing, someone. And the worst ones about this are tobacco and alcohol, where they show people drinking and they're well dressed, they're athletic, they're happy, they're having a good time, they have lots of friends, they're doing exciting things, they are living the high life, so to speak. In fact, for example, Miller Beer, that's their tagline, the high life. So that's a little bit misleading. And then there are other unfair practices in the United States. People advertise things as being on sale or at a low price when they're really just at a regular price. They'll say something is free, but it's not free because you have to buy this part, but then the other part goes with it. It's pretty misleading. You have to be careful. A business must also perform other duties such as distributing fair wages, providing good, safe working conditions, not exploiting their workers, and encouraging competition among other companies, which is one that seems a little odd, but you're not supposed to promote yourself as a monopoly. where you're the only business doing something. Force everybody else out of business. It's just not considered ethical. Paying fair wages doesn't just mean paying the legal minimum. It means paying enough that someone could live on it. We got into that in the Nike case, that what they were paying seemed like nothing, but in that area, in that city where they were being paid a fair wage, even though the world and the public didn't like it. Providing good working conditions. Again, in the United States, there are many, many laws about worker safety. Many. The government has big sections. OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. They respond to complaints and do inspections in workplaces about safety for workers. Some work is just very risky by its nature, such as steel mills and factories, and you have to do everything you can to make it safe. I know that when I worked in plants, we would have employee committees of safety people that I would pull off the job, and we would go through the workplace and come up with lists of items that needed to be repaired or corrected, or some device manufactured and made to make it safer. And then we followed up regularly to make sure that those items were implemented. It's a big deal in a lot of American companies. Worker safety, good working conditions. Not exploiting the workers, that means fairly paying them. There are some companies that will add another shift and work, and there are some companies that force their existing workers to just work all the time. Even if you're paying people properly, there's a limit to how many hours people should work each week so that they can rest. And not doing subversive things to eliminate competition. Business ethics has several definitions. You can see some here in this conglomerate. It's philosophy, morals, social policies, responsibilities, relations, companies, aspects, activities, rules. All of these things are important about your definition of ethics. And that's what it comes down to, is kind of your terms that you want to put on it to make it so that you understand what ethics refers to. We're going to talk about what a couple of famous definitions are and see how they fit with what you think. There are many definitions given, but there are two that are considered very appropriate and online. One is by Andrew Crane, a business writer, and another is by Raymond Baumhart, again, another business writer. These are considered appropriate and on key for what we're talking about, and we're going to talk about them now. There are also definitions that you can look up in textbooks. There are definitions you can look up online. A word here, Wikipedia is one of the easiest places to look things up online. Please do not use Wikipedia as a source for any of your papers that you write for me. Go to a different source. Wikipedia is okay, but just in general terms, anybody can write into Wikipedia and have the data there changed. It is not scholarly written in many cases. It is popularly written, and that is not what you want when you're in graduate school. Here's the I have an old typewriter similar to this. They're pretty interesting to use. Very mechanical devices. I actually learned how to type on a machine similar to this. Business ethics is the study of business situations, activities, and decisions where issues of right and wrong are addressed. So this is Crane, and so it's the study of. Ethics is the study of business situations, things that are happening, activities, things that businesses are doing, and decisions is decisions they make about what to do in different problems where issues related to right and wrong are addressed. Baumhart says, the ethics of business is the ethics of responsibility. The businessman must promise that he will not harm knowingly. And then you see the word harm with the do not, I call it a zing across it. That's like the medical doctors in the U.S. and most places take the Hippocratic oath, and part of it says is that you do no harm. So Baumhart tag teams on that and says the businessman must promise that he will not harm knowingly. He's going to do his best not to harm if he knows better. So there are several features of business ethics that we're going to talk about. There are 8 major features that we'll discuss today. If you notice, I like numbered lists of items. If something comes up and you need to write a paper or take a test or do something for me, and it says list 3 items, you should do number 1 and write what it is. Number 2, write what it is. And number 3, write what it is. Show me that it is listed out like this is listed as 8 items. Eight features of ethics. There's a code of conduct, number 1. Business ethics is actually a form of a code of conduct. It lets us know what to do and what not to do. The business must follow this code of conduct. It's a roadmap. It's a traffic sign directing you which way to go. Code of conduct of a company is very important. It's right there with a code of ethics. Conduct is how you act, how you do things. It's all very closely related. The code of conduct roadmap points you in the right direction. It's based on moral and social values. Business ethics is a subject that is based on moral and social values. It offers some moral and social principles or rules for conducting a business. Set up around your core values. Do not lie, do not steal, much like the 10 Commandments from the Old Testament, Christian Bible, and Jewish tradition. Based on moral and social values. And then those rules are applied to how you conduct a business. Protection to social groups. Business ethics protect various social groups, and these groups include consumers, customers that buy your stuff, employees, workers who are working for you, small business persons that you buy and sell to, government, that you are fair with the government, you do not lie to the government, you follow the government guidelines and rules, you pay the government their fair taxes. Shareholders are the people who own the company. The idea is that they own the company and are going to make some money off of the company. So you are fair to them and that you don't waste the company's assets, and you allow them to have a fair and reasonable return on their ownership of the company. Creditors, people that you pay money to, banks that loan you money, companies that you buy from and then pay the bill later. In the United States, a lot of people buy from another company. Some of them pay cash when it's delivered, some pay check when it's delivered, and some very common terms are what is called 2-10 net 30. 2-10 means if you pay the bill within 10 days, you can give yourself a 2% discount. This is a very good percentage for some companies. They're very happy to get that 2% and they pay early. Or net 30. That means you pay the whole thing, the 100%, at the end of the 30th day. Generally, if you don't pay it by then, they add an interest charge to it because they consider it to be late payment. Some more features of a code of ethics. It offers a basic framework. Business ethics is the basic framework for doing business properly, legally, correctly, honestly. It constructs the social, cultural, legal, economic, and other limits in which a business must operate. So let's see, it talks about social, cultural, legal, economic, and other limits. All of these are important. We talked earlier about legal. Cultural is you're fair to people that work for you from different cultures. If people eat certain foods, you might have a store where you decide to carry these certain foods for people. I know that a lot of Jewish people live in the city where I am, so a lot of the grocery stores have a special section of Jewish foods available that are popular, that they can sell easily. But this is a cultural consideration. Voluntary. Business ethics is meant to be voluntary. It should be self-practiced and not just enforced by the law. But like many things, the United States government has decided that businesses were not as ethical as they should be. So they have made a lot of laws designed to force companies to be more ethical. And if they are not, then people are, as I talked about, Martha Stewart was sent to jail because they said she was involved in a stock transaction that was insider trading. These kinds of things are very real in the U.S., where they try to legislate morality. It's one of the issues that we wrestle with in the United States about how we do things. Trying to legislate morality has worked out very poorly for the long term. Number 6, ethics requires education and guidance. Education is you learn about it, you learn the company's policies. Guidance is for you giving examples of decisions made correctly and why they were made that way. Businessmen and women should get proper education and guidance about business ethics. In many cases in the U.S., trade associations and local chambers of commerce are active in this matter. They have workshops. They teach people how to do things. I know when I worked for Kemet Electronics in the Greenville area in a manufacturing plant, ceramic surface mount capacitors, we regularly attended classes on ethics and other issues related to treating employees fairly. Some of these were held by the Chamber of Commerce for Greenville County. They were very good, very involved. They regularly held them for people. It worked out very well. Ethics is a relative term. Business ethics is a relative term. It changes from one business to another, and it varies some from one country to another. That's why I try to preface some of my examples by saying in the United States, because I know things may be different in other localities. I know that from being in different parts of the United States at different times, business ethics decisions are relative terms. What might be considered okay in one locality is not in another. So there are all kinds of examples that I could give. Business ethics is a relatively new concept. More developed countries over the years have been wrestling with these ideas for many years, higher level philosophy on things. Developing companies are slowly applying these principles and struggling with them too, because there is pressure from the developed countries to apply these ideas in the underdeveloped countries. That's why an ethics course is offered in the MBA program. It is considered a plus for companies hiring employees to know that a student was exposed to ideas about ethical practices in the workplace. So those were 8 features of ethics. We're now going to talk about some of the principles of business ethics. Number 1, avoid exploitation of the consumers. Do not cheat and exploit consumers with measures such as artificial price increases or reduction in quality. Years and years ago, I managed a fried chicken place, kind of like a KFC kind of place, different company. And on Sundays, everybody came in, they wanted to buy the chicken breast. They didn't want the thighs, the legs, or the wings, and it really caused a problem. So we charged extra for people that ordered just the breast. They had more meat on them, and so we charged a little bit more for them. So for a few weeks, I kept raising the price artificially because I wanted to see how high the price would have to get before people stopped asking for all breast meat on their plates. Well, the price got pretty high, and I ended up stopping it because it was just too high and people were still buying it and paying it. But it was an artificial price increase. It was not a real price increase that I had to have. It was just an inconvenience. So the next week I went back down to the original price, and that's where it stayed. but there was no reduction in quality and no permanent price increase. It was just a test for my curiosity. They say to avoid profiteering. Unscrupulous business activities such as hoarding, black marketing, selling banned or harmful goods to earn exorbitant profits must be avoided. Now, I try to avoid these, but you can see how the little dollar signs and the glitter are going on the piles of money here. In this case, we're using US dollars. Unscrupulous means unfair, usually illegal, definitely unethical. Hoarding means you might buy up all of an item and you be the only store that has it. Then you raise the price real high to sell it. There are laws against that in the United States. Black marketing, that's where you have items that are counterfeit items or stolen items, and you sell them at different price levels to people that normally wouldn't get them. Selling banned items, items that are illegal or discontinued items because of a lack of safety. Harmful goods, selling expired goods, expired foods, expired medicines to people, trying to make big profits out of it. It's unethical. It's called profiteering, making a profit at any cost. Encourage healthy competition. That means you don't try to force all the little companies that compete with you out of business. You could, but they may have some little edge that they offer with additional deliveries, extended payment plan, something that you don't do that gives them just a little bit of an edge so they keep a few customers. It is not ethical to force them all out of business and make yourself a monopoly. And in fact, in the United States, there are laws against monopolies. They came into place many years ago with the railroad systems. That's where they started coming up with the anti-monopoly laws. But what it ended up was that the government regulates the railroads. And basically, they do have some monopolies. But they're legal monopolies now. So it's really just a play on words sometimes. Ensure accuracy. If you sell goods by the pound, you should at least once a day take a standard weight, put it on your scale, make sure your scale is correct, adjust it. If you put paper or bags on there, you adjust the tare weight, T-A-R-E, before you weigh. When I worked in businesses where we bought things by the pound, I checked some of the items, each shipment. We put them on the scale and weighed them as they were brought into the building. If the weights were off, I would weigh every item. And then I would subtract that weight from what I paid the person. If the weights were okay, I just checked the first few that I checked and let it go. Statistically, you can do this. Pull a sample and be pretty assured that you're accurate. Recently, my daughter was telling me about Walmart was caught selling prepackaged items, saying that this item weighs 1 pound or so many kilos, and in actuality, it didn't weigh that amount. It weighed less. So they were charging more than they should have. Pay taxes regularly. Taxes and other duties to the government must be honestly paid at the right rate and regularly paid. In the United States, businesses that pay employees take some taxes out of the employee's check, and then every week and every month, certain of those taxes are sent in to the government. These have to be done on a regular basis. That is not money for the companies to use. It is money that goes to the government quickly. Most people have special separate bank accounts set up that those taxes go into, so that there is no problem with how they're handled. It's a very, very big thing. It takes a lot of tax money to run the government in the United States. A lot of tax money. And they have to get all of it in to operate. Every once in a while, for the good of the company, and to help make everything work well, you need to have an outside party come in and check the accounting records. These outside firms are called auditors. They are usually certified public accountants in the United States. They check a lot of transactions and details in the workplace. They try to find out everything that's been happening, check a lot of paperwork, and try to be very clear about what's going on. An audit should then be turned over, the written assessment, turned over to everyone that owns a part of the company. Fair treatment to employees. Employees should be paid a fair wage or salary for the area. The facilities must be adequate, heated, cooled, clean, a place to go sit and eat their lunch, a break room, free from noise, as free from dirt and debris as possible. Some places have a microwave and a refrigerator for people to keep food in for their meals if they decide to eat in. Any safety equipment that's required or necessary, people should be provided. Earplugs for noise, dust mask or flu mask, all these things. Safety gloves to wear. Some businesses where people get very dirty, they provide uniforms for the employees. Any incentives where people are given bonuses for good years with the company or extra pay for extra work, all those should be provided to the employees in a very fair and equal manner. The investors, the shareholders and investors in the company must be adequately informed about all the decisions of the company and all the situations the company is in. Generally, there are statements that come out each year, the financial statements that are audited. There are generally notes to the financial statements about pending lawsuits, pending problems, things that are going to happen, things that might happen, things that have happened. And in these cases, the investors should be informed of what's going on at a stockholders meeting and through other methods. Avoid injustice and partiality to employees. Do not allow discrimination based on gender, male, female, other, race, religion, language they speak. Though now I have trouble with that one because I think that everyone should speak the main language where they work. Nationality, etc. should be avoided. And I'm a little hypocritical on the language because I do not speak Vietnamese. It is not in my list. I can read a little bit of French, and then other than that, I'm totally challenged in dealing with English as a first language. So we wipe out workplace discrimination in general. And we talk about it as related to gender, race, religion, language that you use, and nationality, where you came from. The United States is the melting pot. People come from all over the world to the United States. So we're doing better with that. No bribes, no corruption. Do not give expensive gifts, commissions, and payoffs to people who have influence on decisions affecting your company. And that's a very big one. It's hotly debated. Some places it's considered the right thing to do, but in the United States it is considered illegal. And the United States says that if you're a United States company, those rules apply no matter where you are. Discourage secret agreements with other companies to influence production, distribution, pricing, and etc. Those are considered unethical. They have these kinds of secret agreements. That's where somebody meets and everybody just decides, well, we're all going to charge $100 for this item. And nobody can get it cheaper anywhere, and we'll all make it. It's sort of like OPEC, the oil producing and exporting countries did when they all got together years ago and decided to charge the same price for oil. They didn't make a secret of it. Service before profit. Accept the principle of service first and profit next. Sometimes you end up spending a lot of time on a very small volume customer, but service first. You want to talk to them, you want to be sure they're happy, you want to make sure that everything works out the way it should when you're dealing with them and their products. We are all very happy to see the face of the people that deal with us. We want to identify with the products and the items, and we want it all to work out so that we get excellent ratings from our customers. Practice fair business. Businesses should be fair, humane, efficient, and dynamic to offer certain benefits to consumers. Fair is you treat people the same way. Humane is that you do not hurt anyone. You do not hurt your workers. You do not hurt your customers. Efficiently, you do the best you can to be fair and not be wasteful. And dynamic means you change as times change. Like so many companies had to add selling face masks once the flu epidemic started. It's just one of those things that you have to look at and see what you need to do. Avoid a monopoly. Concentration of economic power should not be practiced. Unfair for one company to handle everything. Fulfill the customer's expectations. Adjust your business activities to the demands, needs, and expectations of the customers. Make it be what they want it to be. Respect the consumer's rights. Honor the basic rights of the consumers. Every human has rights. Accept your social responsibilities. Honor the responsibilities that you have towards the society as a whole. Satisfy the consumer's wants. Satisfy the wants of the consumers as the main objectives of the company. The service motive. Quality service and consumer satisfaction should get more attention than just maximized profit. Try to keep that customer. When you get to a marketing course later on, you will learn some things about what is called the lifetime value of a customer. And if you can keep a customer, it really, really could pay off in the long term for your company. Optimum utilization of resources. Try to remove poverty and increase the standard of living of everyone. Try to give your workers a good job. Try to give your workers a good wage. Try to give your customers a good value for their money so they will keep buying from you. Intentions of the business. Use only permitted legal and proper means to do business. Avoid the illegal, unscrupulous, and immoral and improper things. You see the old computer sign, illegal operation, and then illegal in the cutout letters like a kidnap note. Try to use legal and proper means to operate your business. Woodrow Wilson offered 4 principles of business ethics. Woodrow Wilson was the United States president, not as well known as some of the others. Number 1, the rule of publicity. The business must tell the people clearly what it intends to do. Tell them what your business is. Number 2, the rule of equivalent price. The customer should get proper value for your money. Below standard, outdated, or inferior goods should not be sold at high prices. If you sell those, they should be sold at lower prices because the new one is out. Number 3, the rule of conscience in business. Business people must have a conscience when doing business. That is, a moral sense of judging what is right and what is wrong, an ethical sense of what to do. Number 4, the rule of the spirit of service. The business must give importance to the service motive. Make it important to know what people need and what you want them to do. We're going to look quickly at some examples of unethical business practices. A computer company was defamed in a list for fraudulent financial activities. Some of the things include people like Enron, WorldCom, Parmalat, Ahold, Allied Irish, and Kidder Peabody. Companies that did bad things and got a bad reputation. There was a broad accounting impropriety. They reported a cash reserve of $1 billion that was not really there. How much is $1 billion? That would be a pile of money in fiscal terms. In his letter exposing the fraud, he said, what started as a marginal gap continued to grow, and now it has attained unmanageable proportions. When he finally told the stockholders, it was after it had gotten out of hand. Later, he described it as like riding a tiger, not knowing how to get off without being eaten. This is first cartoon. You see the business people sitting and looking at the sales chart. The sales chart starts off high and then drops down very low. A 34% cut in our corporate ethics should return us to profitability. That's a joke about the fact that being ethical hurts your profits. It doesn't always hurt your profits, but it might in the short term. In this case, the guy is dressed up as the devil, El Diablo, and he's listing the things that he considers to be minimally invasive ethics. That's things you can do right that won't hurt the business. In this case, there's a baby, and the businessman has taken the candy away from the baby, making the baby cry. And the man is saying, yes, that is exactly what we should try to avoid here. So they're learning about ethics. Don't take the candy away from the baby. They're talking about ethics. They're going to say the new company motto is, we didn't do anything illegal. It may have been unethical, is unsaid, but they didn't do anything illegal. And this is where someone is having a business ethics class, and the say is saying, yes, we cheated. You told us to make it realistic. And he's saying that cheating is very common and that lots of people do it. In this case, the guy talks about saving money. He says we're able to cut back on legal fees by being more ethical. So that if you're ethical, you don't have as many lawsuits or as many legal problems, so it costs you less money to be ethical. This is the Maharishi Yogi sitting up in the mountains, giving out his philosophy. The man climbs up, and he gets there, and he says, "You're in luck. Business ethics is a gray area." A gray area in the United States means it's hard to decide. Most decisions are either black or white, yes or no, but then there's a lot of gray areas, a lot of maybes. That's where the boss is telling him to run this paperwork by the legal department, but he doesn't mean take it and let them look at it. He means just walk down the hall real fast so they don't see it. It means he's sneaking something by. Ethics in the workplace. We're going to quickly look at some items introduced there. Work ethics relates to a group of moral principles, standards of behavior, or a set of values regarding proper conduct in the workplace. Relationships at work between the management and ownership toward the clients and customers, between the management toward employees and the employee toward the customers, employee toward the co-workers, and the employee toward the employer, management or boss. So everybody's on good terms, talking and being friendly. Ethics in the workplace also relates to business abuse, which could be of any type. It could be something that is illegal, something that is unethical, something that is an irresponsible act done against the employer. See, where somebody got hurt at work, had to get crutches. And they might be that they're not really hurt. Ethics in the workplace. Results of business abusing ethics include higher prices, business failure, fewer jobs for employees to work, unpleasant working conditions. We talked about that earlier. A good, clean workplace, well heated or well cooled, no dirt. Examples of businesses abusing ethics include stealing from the company. Lots of people used to, when school would start, they would go to the company supply room and steal supplies for their children to take to school. Stealing merchandise out of stores and warehouses, taking money out of petty cash, shoplifting, kickbacks, setting up conflicts of interest where you're going to buy something from your friend or your relative for the company, getting an unauthorized discount when you buy something for yourself, or stealing time. I talked about that earlier, where someone would be on the telephone talking about personal business while they're on company time, clocking in early, clocking out late, clocking in someone else. Those are all examples of stealing time from the company. Though bandits in the United States used to cover their face. Examples of business abuse also include vandalism, where you break things, write on walls, misuse items, misuse the copier, slamming it shut, falsify records about inspections and safety, break confidentiality, telling company secrets to others that work for other companies, ignoring safety rules, misrepresenting merchandise as being higher quality than it is, newer than it is, or in date when it's an expired item. Get a lot of bad publicity about that. Ethics in the workplace. Examples include poor client service, walking into a store and instead of getting up to help you, the people sit over in the corner and talk to each other instead of being salespeople that get up and come offer to help you. Irresponsible behavior, putting something in a bag for a customer that's not a strong enough bag, and you know that as they walk down the street, the bag is going to break and the bottom falls out. as being irresponsible. Addictions, where you're taking drugs or alcohol and not doing your job properly. Tobacco can also be an addiction. It can also be a thing where if you have to go smoke outside the business, where you stay gone too long, your tobacco addiction is causing you to steal time from the company. And again, it's a martini. Examples of business abuse: gossiping, talking about people, causing hard feelings in the workplace, causing poor morale among other employees. It lowers productivity and hurts people's feelings. And gossip takes two people, one telling about it and one listening. Harassment of coworkers or clients is forbidden. Unwelcome sexual advances is considered part of harassment. You have to comply with the rules against harassment as a condition of your employment. Harassment interferes with work performance through intimidation, bullying, being unfair. And also, how do we rationalize business abuse? Sometimes you say, well, everybody does it, which doesn't make it right. If you take something, you say that the company is big, they won't miss it if I take this pile of papers and pens home for my children. The company overcharges people, so I should steal something. I'm not paid enough, and we all say that. We all think we should be paid more. The company doesn't deserve my loyalty. If you don't feel loyal toward the company, you feel bad about all these things, then you should go work for another company. You should be the white knight, the one that does things correctly. And if you remember, the mascot for Columbia Southern University is the knight. Just throw that in there for a little extra. Again, with ethics, how employers respond to these kinds of abuses: increase security, they'll reduce stealing, loss prevention, surveillance cameras. I have worked places where they had surveillance cameras everywhere. They could go back and look at surveillance recordings and just about tell everything that you did all day long. Set up networks, hotlines, and helplines for people that feel like they have problems. Threaten to prosecute people that steal from the company. Try to make things work. This is a shoplifter camera. Another ways they respond is they can increase their loyalty to their employees. Many companies during these past rough times of layoffs and cutbacks, sometimes people could work from home. Sometimes they couldn't afford to keep them. But you try to improve the loyalty of your employees by paying fair wages and benefits, fair and consistent treatment, recognition for good hard work, and you try to have a family climate where they feel like they can come and talk to you about things. You try to have a winning, prize-winning workplace. Ethics in the workplace include employees. What choices do we have? Ignore the abuse, rationalize it away, speak up about it, discuss it to clarify the questions, or you can be a whistleblower and talk about it and tell about it. One of the units that we did not have a written assignment for talked about whistleblowers. And this is the last side of our presentation. If you're unsure about what's going on, ask yourself these questions. Is this legal? Is this against company policy? Could the action cause loss or harm to anyone or the company? If everyone I knew saw me doing this, would it make me feel uncomfortable or bad? If my children saw me doing this, would they think it was bad? Then I would need to stop. This is the end of our presentation today. We have spent some time in this online session 1 talking about APA style, 7th edition, and the changes that have taken place, overall scope of business ethics in general. We looked at 6 controversial issues about business ethics. We looked at 8 features of business ethics policies, and we looked at 22 principles of business ethics, including number 22, which was Woodrow Wilson's 4 principles of running a good business. We examined several U.S. comics strips about ethics and how they apply to the things we've been talking about. And then we had a final session on ethics in the workplace, things to look at and things to do. I thank you. Please contact me by email for any information you need regarding your course assignments. Please refer to your tutors. They are very knowledgeable, professional people who are very capable of helping you with this course, and they are your first defense in working on all these items. Thank you. Again, please email me if you need anything from me.